Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. Now, friends, I want to talk about something that is a little bit scary for most of us. Let's talk about money. But more specifically, let's talk about the fact that you may or may not actually be saving for your retirement right now and what to do about that. My special guest today is Hilary Hendershott, and she is the founder of Hendershott Wealth Management, a leading financial advisory firm for women, specifically with her mission to motivate you and your loved ones to be financially empowered. She hosts the Profit Boss Radio. It's a weekly podcast where she and her guests offer inspiration and actionable advice to support women in their financial journey. So make sure to tune in to her podcast as well. She's a TEDx speaker and she's been featured everywhere, pretty much. So that includes Wall Street Journal, NBC, ABC, Forbes, and more. She's got an MBA from Santa Clara University and she is a certified financial planner. I couldn't think of somebody more perfect to lead us down this path and simplify retirement and saving than her. I'd like to welcome to the podcast today, Hilary Hendershott. Hey, Hilary.
Hi, thanks for that intro and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. All right, so here's the real deal, Hilary. Most of us, and I honestly don't think it's just women, but most of us that are small business owners, we're caught in the hamster wheel. We're going, we're putting out fires on the day-to-day. We're not always thinking about retirement 20, 30, 50 years down the line. Where do we even begin with this?
Yeah. So let me just say right off the bat, I'm a financial advisor in the United States. So everything that I talk about is specifically, especially when we're talking about specific account types and things like that, I'm talking to an American audience. I apologize if you're not in the US. I don't know your system. The other bit is whenever I talk about investing, don't buy anything based on what I say today. Okay, I don't know you. I don't know your timeline or your risk profile. So let's just take everything broad strokes today.
Yes.
So where do we start? First of all, I completely agree. I myself found it hard to find time to create a retirement plan for my company, for myself. The thing is, though, if you set it up, if you take the time, block the time and get it set up, actually kind of the neat thing about the fact that we don't have time to think about and review things that aren't urgent is that you'll forget about it. Those retirement account contributions will be happening behind the scenes. And before you know it, you'll have built up and bolstered your nest egg. So for me, I mean, as we record this, it's April, but I found that a couple years ago toward the end of the year, I knew that if I didn't set up my 401k, I was not going to get that tax deduction for the year. Mm-hmm. So if you choose to contribute to a 401k specifically, if you don't make those contributions through payroll by the 31st of the year, you're going to give $6,000 to Uncle Sam that you could put back in your pocket. So for me, it was that dollar amount, that free money that I know the tax deferral affords me that really was my motivator. And in truth, it only took me about a couple hours to set up the thing. But so find your why, find that reasoning. And I recently spoke to a group of high school students, an all-girls high school. It was a cool experience. And many of the questions that they asked me were about 401ks. And one question was, if you don't, is there any reason that you would not contribute to a retirement account or a 401k? And I thought about it for a second and I said, the only reason you wouldn't contribute is if you don't like free money. So let that tax deadline be your motivator and just get it set up and then you can really forget about it.
Okay. So before we dive into all this, I want to know more about your backstory. So how did you become such an expert in financial management?
Well, let's see. So I really do have a head for numbers. I have a degree in economics. I used to tutor the math portion of the SAT. I'm a certified financial planner. I have an MBA. So numbers are my jam. Okay. So my father mentored me into his business. He had a successful financial planning firm in my 20s. Now, truth be told, I thought it was really boring. I did not like the work. And that's just being honest. I didn't relate to the people around me. Many of my clients, my father's clients, were older than him. And so in my 20s, I didn't necessarily see myself serving 60 and 70-year-olds, right? Mm-hmm. But it turns out that even though, and why I said I do have a head for numbers is because, interestingly, I was an overspender. I found myself advising multimillionaires about their investment portfolios during the day, and at night coming home to a stack of bills that I wouldn't open because I could not pay them. So I had some real financial management issues, which turned out to be money psychology issues that I needed to surmount. And I say it kind of humbled me, gave me a lot of compassion for where people are. And along the way, I really figured out that my technical skill set, what it's really good for is to help people actually achieve their goals. Money is an area of life that's important. It's critical, and it's really painful for a lot of people. So I get to make a difference in the world by applying my technical skill set. At this point, I've completely overcome the financial troubles of my past, but they have put me in a good place to serve women, especially. And so now I find myself truly, truly fulfilled and excited on a daily basis.
So where would we begin then if we are somebody like you were many years ago, where, the thought of money just sort of kind of goes, ugh, I'll do something else. Like, how do you start to redefine your relationship with money? What would you advise?
Wow, that's a huge topic. So look, money is very practical. It's a tool. And if you find yourself not doing the things that you should be doing or doing things you shouldn't be doing, I submit for your consideration that it is a money psychology issue. It is a problem that has to do with strongly held beliefs that you have about money or yourself about money, and that it can be surmounted, but that someone telling you what to do isn't going to make a difference. Look, ultimately, we all know the basic keys to a successful diet, right? Eat less, exercise more. And yet for a lot of people, it makes no difference. Okay. So sometimes knowing makes no difference. And if you're in that camp, if you're listening to this, just know that it's okay. There are many who are in that situation. It doesn't mean you're bad, irresponsible, or undisciplined. It just means that there's a psychological issue that isn't being addressed by the save more now kind of media prescription.
Right. And I think that there also is, certainly in our modern culture, especially in America, that you soothe yourself by buying stuff, right? Oh, I've had a horrible day, so I'm just going to go shop. And it's part of the culture itself. So it's also having to retrain that brain of going, well, hang on, why do I need that? And that really comes back down to simplicity and simplifying your life too.
It does. And not everyone who has financial troubles is an overspender. So not all people turn to things. I've worked with people who do things like buy things and then return them. I've worked with people who were afraid to actually have money in their life, who they believe, and it's especially really deconstructive if you're a business owner, who believe that wanting money or serving for money is bad. It's fundamentally evil. So this creates this like major conflict in your mind. Here, part of you wants to have a healthy financial life, and part of you thinks that what you're doing, if you're doing it for the money, is bad. But those things just are not true, right? So you have an area of your life called your financial life, and in that life, in that area, you need to have abundance. You need sufficiency in order to do your best work in the world. And there's nothing bad about doing something for money.
Right. I mean, even if you are a not-for-profit charity, you still need money. You still need the tool to purchase your expenses and run a business.
Yeah. Charities spend a massive amount of resources, time, and intellectual capital thinking about getting money. I know because I worked for one. And so just because an organization is legally a not-for-profit does not at all mean that they can divorce themselves from the financial resource. And if you work in one, you know that.
Right. So because
it's all about funding.
Yeah. And let's bring it back to that small business owner. So, a for-profit company, let's say she's a graphic designer out there. What do you see as the first mistake that she makes when it comes to paying herself? How are we supposed to do that? She
doesn't do it.
Why is that, you guys? Pay yourself.
I think, so first of all, in the first couple of years you're running a business, you're going to be in negative cash flow for a period of time. So every business needs startup capital, whether you take that from your credit cards or your 401k or your home equity line or your savings, or you tighten your belt and you live within one spouse's income, or, more power to you if you're able to get investor dollars. So, but you have startup capital, you have a run rate. Okay. So you're working your rear end off in many cases, building that product or service, getting customers and servicing them. And that plane is taking off, and the airplane burns, it's the most fuel at the beginning of the flight on takeoff, right? So it takes a lot of energy to get that plane up in the air. And during that time, yeah, it makes sense. You're not going to pay yourself that much. And if you're an entrepreneur who gets to pay yourself in the first few years, again, kudos to you. And it's important as an entrepreneur, you have to shift out of that mindset. You cannot stay in startup mode forever. It's not appropriate. It doesn't fit. It doesn't resonate. It will have you overworked and underappreciated and underpaid. So at some point, you need to start paying yourself a market wage, right? If you're working 7 days a week, 360 days a year, earning minimum wage or the equivalent of, you might as well just go get a job. Let's have entrepreneurship be the golden road to an amazing lifestyle. You got to create profitable revenue streams and pay yourself handsomely. And so you could start a couple rules of thumb. Start by paying yourself $50,000 a year, move as quickly as you can to $100,000 a year with a goal of $250,000. That's just a rule of thumb. I just threw that out there. I tell my clients, if you can't earn $250,000, might not be worth it to own a business, or unless you're looking for flexibility, right? Because you can just go get a job. Another rule of thumb is you can pay yourself 10% of profits and then move to 15% of profits and then 20% of profits each year. You can sort of incrementalize yourself up. So those are just a couple ways to think. And I like to throw actual numbers out there because I like people to react to them. I'm very interested in, business owners and your viewers, especially having very lucrative lives.
Yes.
So let's take the ceiling off. Let's think big.
Right. And I think that it comes back to realizing that you jumped off the corporate 9-to-5 train to build a business that suits your lifestyle. So it should also pay you. I mean, bottom line. And if it doesn't pay you over time, then it starts to question why you're doing it. Is it more of a hobby or something like that rather than an actual business that is supporting you not only with freedom of time, hopefully, but also with the money that you want to earn and that you deserve. So let's break it down on the technical side. Should people pay themselves on payroll, or should they take what's called an owner's draw? And what's the difference between the two?
Okay, so we're just on the tad outside of my expertise. So the core answer to that is ask your CPA. Okay, you need a good CPA, but think about it this way. What you pay yourself on payroll, that's what you're paying yourself as the CEO. So when you own a business, you are the owner and the CEO until you hire a CEO to take your place.
Yes.
Okay. So look out in the industry. What is a CEO in your industry making? You should be able to pay yourself that on payroll, wearing your CEO hat as soon as possible. And then anything else that's left over, those are your profit draws. That's your owner pay. So if you're going to be a serial business owner, you can hire a CEO. And now you have no time obligations left, nothing remaining to do in that company, and you still get to draw the profit. That's the really cool part. So that's a way to think about it. And then one little piece of heat of warning I will say is that I hear a lot of sometimes tax people give advice that's about reducing taxes, but in my opinion, it actually worsens your long-term financial picture. So one thing I do hear people say, tax folks sometimes, is that you should only pay yourself $50,000 on payroll. And what that does is it prevents you from having to pay the employer payroll tax on more of those dollars, okay? But what it also prevents is you from paying into the Social Security system. Well, I have clients who are bringing in, as a married couple, $60,000, $65,000 a year from Social Security. And that's income in perpetuity. It doesn't stop. Okay. So I myself really want to pay into Social Security so that I can maximize that Social Security, what you could consider pension or annuity income. There's not many breaks that Congress gives you. So in my opinion, you should take them.
Even if you're 30 years old right now? I mean, there is that whole feeling of will Social Security even be there when I'm 65? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, this is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is that taking Social Security away would be political suicide for any politician.
Yeah.
Just think about the most massive lobby in the United States is AARP. And so once people pay into that system, they don't want to not get paid back. In my opinion, the federal government is going to tax you through inflation, which means they're going to print money so that the prices continue to increase. That means if you want to keep up, you need to maximize your Social Security pay in so you can maximize your Social Security pay out.
Okay. So
that's my opinion.
Got it. So let's break down like the different retirement account options. Like what's out there and how do you decide what's right for you and your business? Can you break that down for us?
Yeah. So, and I kind of go through my own lifetime as an entrepreneur because I've pretty much done all of these. So in the very beginning, the best thing for you to do, well, when your income is very low, you could just do your $5,500 to your Roth or IRA. Anyone with earned income can make those contributions. Mm-hmm. If you are not incorporated, you can contribute 25% of your net income to a SEP IRA. SEP stands for Simplified Employee Pension. Okay. A lot of people think it stands for self-employed. It does not. But anyway, it's a SEP. So if you earn $100, you can contribute $25 to the SEP. Now, that has to be money that you would have paid tax on. So you can't earn $100, show the government that you have $100 in expenses, have $0 of net income, and then contribute to a SEP. Okay. So you do have to have taxable income.
Okay.
Another opportunity, if you are incorporated, you can do a solo 401k. This is a pretty cool opportunity because you surmount the problem from the SEP. So you can contribute up to $18,500 if you're under the age of 50 to a solo 401k. And that doesn't have to be net income. So you don't have to show taxable income to do that. But that's only if you have no employees. Then if you do have employees, you have two options. You can do a simple, and the simple is less expensive than the traditional 401k plan, and it requires less contribution to your employee accounts. But if you just want to go the full bore, and I did this 2 years ago, you go ahead and install a company 401k plan. Everyone can contribute. In 2019, it's $19,000 and it's $26,000 if you're over the age of 50. It does have administrative costs, and you will be required to contribute to your employee accounts. However, it's a great retention tool, and it is the way you, as the employer, can maximize your tax-deferred contributions.
Okay, so pause, Hilary. I'm imagining somebody somewhere is listening to this episode and their eyes are starting to glaze over because they're going, oh my God, this is a lot of stuff. So let's just get back to and point that you have a great resource on your website that breaks all of this down in simple terms on how to choose the right retirement plan for you if you're self-employed. So make sure to click the link in our show notes to read it. If sometimes you're not an auditory learner and you're like, oh my God, Hilary just threw out a whole bunch of stuff very, very fast and I have no clue what she just said. So
it was only 3. Well, it was kind of 4. You're right.
Sometimes I know, but sometimes I think that that's what happens for a lot of us is that it's like, oh gosh, this is just too much. And then brain starts to shut down. And that's where I think having a professional financial planner that helps guide you along and says, hey, oh, whoa, stop. This isn't that scary. This is all you need to do. Just point this way. This is what this means and all of that. So what do you think are the biggest mistakes here that self-employed people make? Not signing up for one? Just avoiding it altogether?
I think what I see mostly is that entrepreneurs wait until late in the game to get started saving. The worst that I see, for example, I met a business owner recently who has a very successful business. She's well known in the community. She even does joint ventures with folks from the Stanford Research Institute. And so she's making $2 million a year in her business and paying herself less than $50,000. She has nothing saved and no real estate owned. So literally that business could go away tomorrow and she'd be left with nothing. She would literally be nowhere. And I hate it. Pains me. It hurts my heart to see that. Yeah. And so let's go to sort of the other end of the spectrum. You get yourself on payroll for a healthy salary. You're occasionally taking owner draws. You've got a 401k plan installed. So I see folks at all points along that spectrum. I think one other mistake that people make is to keep their savings in cash. So BlackRock Financial did a study of high net worth women, or what they call mass affluent women, and 71% of women who said that they had $100,000 or more saved also reported that that savings was sitting in cash, which means literally it's losing value every day as inflation ticks up, as the price level ticks up. So, I'm kind of the voice for, hey, look, there really are, you have what you do. And I know it's technical because you get paid well to do it. And so there are ways to either learn what you need to learn to save and invest appropriately, or you can delegate it by hiring someone to advise you over time.
Yeah. And so what you're saying is that if somebody is taking, say, 5 or 10% of every paycheck and squirreling it away into a savings account, or, which is the equivalent of putting some cash underneath your bed, then that's not the best way to really save for your retirement. So instead, it's hooking it back into your IRA. Is there other ways that we can utilize that money in a much more efficient way?
Yeah, so think about it like this. You have your account is the car that you're driving, okay? So your IRA, your Roth IRA, your SEP, whatever that is, that's the car. Now, without a driver in the car doesn't go anywhere. So once you put money in the account, you have to then buy an investment inside that account. So the investment is the driver.
Okay.
And the driver determines whether the car goes fast or slow or swerves or stays on the road or goes off-roading, okay? I hope my metaphor is working here. And so it's important to select the right investment portfolio for you. And, the topic of investments is very technical. For the most part, it's likely outside the scope of this particular conversation. But suffice it to say, do not leave that savings in cash. You want to get invested in a diversified portfolio as low cost as you can and let it ride.
And again, that's where having a wealth manager or financial advisor help you understand what's the options that are out there, right? That person is going to guide you towards, if you are more of a conservative investor versus more risk averse, then, knowing what to choose makes most sense for you.
You're spot on. There are ways to do that in very low cost ways that don't have a financial advisor attached, right? So they call this a digital investment platform. Some folks call them robo-advisors. And there are ways to bring in someone like me who does a very comprehensive, very high touch job of that. So it's out there. It's viable. It's affordable.
Right. And real quick on this, because I remember seeing on your website that you and your fee structure works differently than most financial advisors. Can you talk to us about that? What are the different options?
So most financial advisors charge a percentage of the account balance that they manage. Even the digital investment platforms charge, as I said, a percentage of the account balance that they manage.
Yeah.
I think, let's just say the going rate for digital platforms is 0.5% of the balance that they manage. And the going rate for financial advisors like myself is 1%.
Okay.
So you get a human being that gets to know you and your goals for 0.5% more.
And then do you check in with your financial advisor every quarter, every 6 months, every year? What do you recommend?
Totally customized to you.
Yeah.
You should call your financial advisor. You got to have a financial advisor who doesn't charge for phone calls, emails, right? Because you want to feel free to be in touch. We anchor at my firm. We anchor on one meeting a year with the client, and in my experience, folks want to talk a lot more often when something's happening. Like, let's say their parents are sick, or they're buying a house, or they've got laid off from a job, or they're looking for a new job. So anytime something's changing, we hear from people a lot, and we're very welcoming of those communications. But we invite people to meet at least once a year.
Right. And, I can certainly see the value in having a real life human being as your person that understands your business, understands your life, and can actually give you genuine advice that it's not just related on how much money they're going to make from the deal. It's actually genuine to what your current situation is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously I have a horse in this race, so I'm not unbiased as to the answer to that question. I do think, though, that if you're listening, you know what kind of personality you have in terms of I myself am a delegator. I have people that sometimes help me cook, that help me clean my house, that help me run errands. I pay a lot for tax advice. I obviously pay my doctor for good medical advice.
Right.
That if I weren't a financial advisor, I think I'm someone who would want a financial advisor. And if that's your personality style, then I think you already sort of know that you lean that way. And especially even if you're a business owner, you're smart enough to do what I do for yourself, but you don't have the time to do it, and you've got to get it handled, or it's going to cost you a lot of money in opportunity cost, right? You'll get to your 40s and 50s and the money just won't be there. So you've got to bring in a professional, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, I know that we've all seen those graphs where it's like the hockey stick goes whoosh, and if you start your savings process early, it's like, oh, there goes the money all the way up. Woo! And so here I am at 41 thinking, yeah, I've got a couple of savings programs. I do have a 401k, but, have I put enough in there? Time does go by very fast. I started the Simplifiers when I was 26. I'm 41 now. So, I mean, it's interesting to know how.
Wow.
Yeah. How
you must have learned a lot about a lot of things.
A lot along the way. So, I mean, it is interesting for me as well, but I still feel very, I don't know. I'll be the first to admit that I sometimes, when it comes to money and wealth management, stick my head in the sand like an ostrich because I go, that's just a bit scary. I'll just move on to something else because, but you make a lot of sense when you say like you pay money for a doctor to heal your body. There's no reason why you wouldn't pay an expert, who understands finance and retirement plans and all that to help you and advise you. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, I say to folks, you want to think of the cost of a good advisor as the cost of an insurance policy against making mistakes.
Yes.
So I have clients who, before they met me, took advice from friends or coworkers about, for example, taxes, especially in Silicon Valley. If you have any type of equity compensation, taxes is a big deal. Okay. And this person in particular made $3 million at a local tech company, and she lost through a bad tax action $1 million. Gosh. So she made a massive mistake. And of course, that coworker that gave her that advice, is that person responsible for her losses? No, no. And she did this to avoid paying $1,000 for a good tax, preparer. And so, and she's been with me 10 years, and she still to this day talks about losing that $1 million. Of course she's going to talk about it. Right. So I say folks on my watch don't make mistakes. And what we know is that, it's tough. It becomes at some point in your life, it's going to be tough to rebuild the retirement accounts if you do make a big mistake like that. So, it just depends what you want to pay for and what kind of emotional peace of mind do you want to have?
Well, and also coming back to money mindset. I mean, I think about other aspects of my business that was once very, very scary. I think it's a matter of collecting the information and then becoming more educated about how the process works. Then you diffuse the fear. So this thing that was like, insurmountable, stick my head in the sand, actually becomes like, well, that's not as scary as I thought it was because I know more about it now. So it's a matter of educating yourself. So
doing video used to be really scary for me.
Exactly, right? And then you do it enough times, it's like riding a bicycle. You tend to...
You get the right hardware, you figure out where to plug the things in.
You mess it up a few times in the beginning, but then you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So I also imagine that there's quite a few ladies that are listening to this episode right now who kind of are sitting there going, well, what if I don't make very much money, Hilary? Like, what if my business is just this little thing here, whatever little means to them? What would you say to that girl?
So I say if you are a solopreneur, you can take your money, if you took your money mindset figuratively and threw it on the wall, that is your business because you created your business using the psychology that you had when you started your business and up until today, right? So the bad news is it's your fault. The good news is it's your fault,
Mm-hmm.
which means that if we impact your money psychology, if I impact how you think and talk about money, of course I can impact your business, right? If you're going to work one-on-one with clients, you have to charge a massive amount of money to have that be very lucrative and profitable for you. And by the way, if you're the business and the service provider, how are you ever going to take a vacation? How are you ever going to have time off, right? So it's about configuring that business so that it's a set of systems that you can hire people and put them into so that you can take a vacation and you can get paid while you're not working, right?
It's true.
So for many people, I think we get started in business with great intentions, but in too many cases, we don't take the time, whether it's through small thinking or just naivete, to create a business where massive profits are possible. So you can totally pivot. You can change how you do business, or change how you price, or change who you hire, and make and create leverage.
And I think what you're also saying there, or what I hear you saying, is no matter how big or small you think your business is, you still need a financial advisor or somebody to guide you along the way. Because small is relative to anybody, whether you make $10,000 a year or $250,000 a year. Small is defined up here in your head, right? You still need advice.
I think so.
You still need to save for your retirement.
Yeah, and there are business coaches and there are money coaches. And, like I said, I spoke at a women's empowerment event in Seattle 3 weeks ago, and a gal raised her hand and she said, well, should I hire a coach? Because I was talking about a coaching program that I offer. She said, should I hire a coach if I'm just at the beginning of my business? Like, I'm just getting started. I said, well, how long have you been just getting started? She said 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, are you really just getting started, or are you just sort of in denial that the business model you've got doesn't actually work, right? Or isn't creating the life or the profits that you want and need in your life to live your best life? And the good thing is that there's lots of folks around you to help.
Right. So I think I already know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyways. When is a good time to actually start saving? At what age that you are, or what stage of your business? Yesterday?
I always, there's a quote from Warren Buffett that says, the best time to start investing was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And I kind of always lean away from saying, oh, start early, because most folks who start listening are in 35, 40 years old, and it's too late, right?
Yeah.
So I'm an optimist, and I'm an evidence-based optimist, by the way. No matter where you are, you can make a huge impact in your financial life, and you can achieve financial freedom. We just have to really work on that lever. Okay. So the best time to start saving is absolutely today. Get started small. You can ratchet those numbers up over time. And it's all about net worth. Okay. So you want to create your money as a machine that increases your net worth a little or a lot every single pay period. So you want to make sure you've set up that machine so that that's happening for you. That's that old adage, pay yourself first, right? Yeah. And once you've got that started, then you can ratchet the numbers up. And that's when things kind of, you'll start to feel the impacts of your past behavior, and it'll start to feel like your insufficiency, like you have enough, like you're really on track for something good.
Got it. So your vehicles are your IRA or the different types of IRAs. Are there other ways that people can save money each month or quarter or year?
Well, you save in a savings account for your short-term goals, like your vacations, your holiday gifts, your next car. You could save in a 529 for your kids' college in the U.S. And then, once you've maxed out the allowable savings in a retirement account, and by the way, we didn't even mention profit sharing plans, which people can put actually $250,000 into. So if you have a high profit business, you should definitely get a plan consultant. I do that. There are other folks who do that, but it's something I do. And then for folks who exceed like I mentioned, for the 401k, it's $19,000 a year. If you can save more, you just do that in a brokerage account. Okay, so that's not tax deferred savings, but many of my clients have big brokerage accounts, and that's just how you do it if you've exceeded what they'll allow you to do in a tax deferred way.
Perfect. And another side of the coin is that there is investing as well. So, but that's separate to an IRA, or is it the same? Investing in the stock market, day trading, things like that.
Yeah, so your IRA will live at a financial institution like Vanguard or Schwab or Fidelity,
Mm-hmm.
and then that custodian will have a menu of investment options. So when you open your IRA, now you've got your cars on the freeway, and now you need to pick the driver to get in the car. Those are the
Right.
investments.
Got it.
Okay, so that'll be a function of the menu that your custodian offers you.
Hmm. And did you say earlier on in the episode, I want to make sure we put a pin in the map on this. I mean, I'm sure people are thinking, well, wait a second, Hilary, I still got to pay my bills. How do I do that? I mean, we're taking little bits out every month or every quarter or putting into these accounts, right?
Well, yeah, life is expensive. Yeah, so you got to make a lot of money,
Right. So the part of
right?
that is making sure you're charging enough to your clients, and not undervaluing your products and services, but then
That's why
also,
I gave that 250 number. That's why I said,
yeah,
think about building a business where you can pay yourself $250,000.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you have to pay taxes, you have to pay for your obligations, you have to buy cars, you have to pay for gifts, you have to pay for college, and you have to pay for your financial future. It is an expensive life.
Yes. So just a reminder, you guys can click in the show notes for links to Hilary's website as well as her Choosing a Retirement Plan blog post, which is excellent. It breaks it all down in very simple terms for you guys. And so that you can start to make a plan. That's it. I mean, that's bottom line. If you're trying to take a trip to Iceland, you don't just jump on a plane, you make a plan to get there and do the thing. And this is part of that as well. So, Hilary, I have a couple of questions for you that I'd like to ask. I ask everybody that comes on to the podcast. First and foremost, what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or maybe even poking holes and challenging your thought process and belief system?
Well, I definitely remember the first time I finished the book, The Entrepreneurial Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Absolutely rocked my world, changed the way I run my business. I make all my employees read it. So I would highly recommend that one. If I could get a little plug in for Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Also, incredible book, will absolutely change your life if you follow the prescriptions in that book. And you will be a business owner who no longer has financial emergencies. Okay. Yeah, those are the two.
Perfect. Great. And tell us who's one person that you know, either in your client base or colleagues, that you just think is up to brilliant things right now in the world, and somebody that you think we should interview on the Simplifiers podcast, and why?
So I have been following a gal named Amber De La Garza. She calls herself the productivity specialist, and she's completely changed the way I organize my day, my morning routine. I get things done. Even though I have 100 emails that come in, I'm able to pick out the ones that mean the most and that have the most leverage to my business. And my clients never don't hear back from me. And that's really critical. So I'm really grateful to her.
Amber sounds amazing. We'll definitely get connected with her. So
Cool.
I believe that gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what's one thing you're grateful for right now in your life?
Well, my daughter has a chronic illness, so right now I'm grateful for doctors and science.
Yeah, I can imagine. So again, you can find Hilary on her website, Hilary Hendershott, that's with 2Ts.com. Where do you hang out the most on social media, if any place?
On Facebook, actually. I know Instagram is the thing these days, and maybe someday I'll get converted. But right now I hang out on Facebook. So you can find me at facebook.com/hilarity.
Perfect.
But everything Hilary Hendershott is on my homepage.
All right, perfect. We'll put those links to your social media in the show notes as well for people to get connected with you. Hilary,
Thanks.
again, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you breaking this stuff down because, again, it's all about diffusing the fear in people and starting to take action towards wealth management. So my final question for you today is this, Hilary. Someone somewhere is listening to this episode and she probably chuckled out loud when I mentioned the ostrich sticking her head in the sand, because that pretty much describes her to a T. What's one thing that you could whisper into her ear just right now to encourage her in this moment?
So I would say anything is possible. That if I mentioned before that I had my own financial rock bottom, things looked very bleak at that time. And now fast forward, I've got an 800 credit score. I've got a very profitable business. I own a $2 million home here in San Jose. Anything really is possible if you put your mind to it. It does take concentrated effort, but only thinking won't get you there. You have to also take action. So just take action based on something you heard today.
And do the thing. Yeah. Thanks, Hilary, so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you.